Pittenweem is a fishing village and civil parish in Fife, on the east coast of Scotland. At the 2001 census, it had a population of 1,747. The name derives from Pictish and Scottish Gaelic. Pett represents Pictish pett, place, portion of land, and enweem is Gaelic nar h-Uaimh of the caves in Gaelic, so the place of the caves. The name is rendered Bale nar h-Uaimh in modern Gaelic, with Bale town, settlement, substituted for the Pictish prefix. The cave in question is almost certainly St. Fillan's Cave, although there are many indentations along the rocky shores that could have influenced the name. History. Until 1975, Pittenweem was a royal borough, having been awarded the status by King James V in 1541. Founded as a fishing village around a probably early Christian religious settlement, it grew along the shoreline from the west where the sheltered beaches were safe places for fishermen to draw their boats up out of the water. Later a breakwater was built, extending out from one of the rocky skerries that jut out southwest into the Firth of Forth like fingers. This allowed boats to rest at anchor rather than being beached, enabling large vessels to use the port. A new breakwater further to the east was developed over the years into a deep, safe harbour with a covered fish market. As the herring disappeared from local waters and the fishing fleet shrank, this harbour and its attendant facilities became the main harbour for the fishermen of the East Neuk of Fife. The white houses with red roofs illustrate the classic East Neuk building style influenced by trade with the Low Countries. The East Neuk offered natural trading ports for Dutch and Belgian captains as they sailed up past the east coast of England. These ships brought red pantiles as ballast, and the locals soon found them to be excellent roofing material. One can just make out the crow-step gable. The gable ends rise in steps rather than the more normal smooth angled line, an architectural feature imported from the Low Countries. These and other vernacular features are common throughout the town, which has one of Scotland's best preserved and most attractive townscapes, with many historic buildings. The organic layout of the town centre grew up piecemeal over several centuries, with numerous winding streets and alleys. At the shore end of the outer harbour wall, some of the paving stones have numbers engraved on them. The numbers are now randomly scattered, but once were vital to the smooth operation of the fish market. Before the pier was resurfaced, the stones were placed in numerical order at the quayside running outwards from the shore. The first fishing boat to return with its catch placed its haul alongside stone number 1, the second boat at stone 2, and so on. When the market opened, the fish was sold in strict order of landing. In 1779 John Paul Jones anchored half a mile off Pittenweem in the Bonhomme Richard. Jones bombarded Anstruther, but did not attack Pittenweem. However, he made off with the town's pilot who had sailed out to meet Jones' squadron. There is a feudal barony of Pittenweem, which, on the death of the last baron in 2011, was offered for sale by the executors of William Ronald Crawford Miller. Industry. Pittenweem is currently the most active of the fishing ports in the East Neuk coast of Fife. Other primary industries are farming, tourism and, recently, arts and crafts. In former times, Pittenweem had two coal mines, one inland at East Grangemere, the other at Path Head, on the coast between Pittenweem and St. Monians. A spin-off from the Path Head mine was salt production. Receptacles below the tide line collected water that could be pumped up to salt pans, the pans then being heated by coal fires fed from the mine to extract the salt. Evidence of the ash produced can still be seen on the coast. At one time the village was served by the Fife Coast Railway. Geology. Geography. The village sits astride a raised beach, with the lower part of the village housing the harbour and the older houses, and the upper part having the main shopping area, churches, school and more recent housing. Education. Pittenweem Primary School is a traditional village school with its own playing fields on the northern side of the older part of the village. It caters for children aged 4/5 to 11/12. Secondary education is provided at Wade Academy in the neighbouring town of Anstruther. The nearest private educational institution is St Leonard's School in St Andrews, or the High School at Dundee. Religion. In the Middle Ages, Pittenweem Priory was a small Augustinian monastery linked to that on the Isle of May and built over the ancient sacred cave associated with St. Fillan. The cave, recently fitted out as a chapel, is situated in Cove Wynd and is open to the public with the key available locally from the Cocoa Tree Cafe. For this rough dwelling, St Fillan is said to have converted the local Pictish population. The cave was rediscovered around 1900 when a horse ploughing in the priory garden fell down a hole into it. The cave has flat rocks that are presumed to be beds and a small spring of holy water at the rear. St Fillan's cave was also used as a prison for witches during the witch hunts of the 17th–18th centuries. A shrine was dedicated to St Adrian on the Isle of May. It is said that St Adrian's men undertook the first harbour improvements, laying the foundation for the fishing industry, but no evidence for this currently exists. The present Church of Scotland parish kirk is on the site of the Priory Church. Much of the fortified east gatehouse of the Priory survives, as does the Great House, one of Scotland's best preserved late medieval houses, which may have served as accommodation for the prior and monks. As befits a village steeped in the dangerous and uncertain practices of fishing and farming, there are many churches in the village. Current denominations with churches include Church of Scotland, Roman Catholic, Episcopalian and Baptist. Other denominations have had churches of the equivalent, but these have been converted to other purposes. The Church of Scotland Church Hall, for example, was once the Free Church of Scotland Kirk. The late 17th to early 18th centuries saw a number of notorious witch hunts by the local minister. The borough was bogged down in debt and witchcraft was used as an excuse to improve the financial position by seizing the assets of some local women. The Church of Scotland building at the top of the High Street adjoined the toll booth, which was used as the jail for the witches, and the door to the cells can still be seen. It is the studded door at the bottom of the tower. Culture. In the late 1960s, the local fishermen celebrated the reopening of the redesigned harbour with a gala day, when the boats were dressed overall and people could take short trips on the boats. By the early 1980s, however, increasing regulation, higher fuel costs and a shrinking fleet were bringing this event to its knees. In its place in 1982 sprang up an arts festival, which initially incorporated the gala day as its finale. The arts festival has moved on somewhat, however, becoming one of the best-loved art festivals in Scotland with an estimated 25,000 visitors in 2013. Many artists have rediscovered the charms and the light of the area, which was always popular with itinerant and hobby artists, and have moved to the village, creating a vibrant artistic community. The village is home to a number of members of the Fence Collective, as well as the Scottish collection of Art Extraordinary Gallery belonging to the Art Extraordinary Trust. Art Extraordinary arises from a powerful compulsion to create an inner personal vision. Pittenweem had the first newspaper in the area, the Pittenweem Register. It caused a great stir in the town when the London daily newspapers contained extracts from the Register's 8th edition. There is also a fairly well-known song, Pittenweem Joe, written in 1960. Politics. The local member of the UK Parliament is Stephen Gethin's MP of the SNP. The local member of the Scottish Parliament is Willie Rennie of the Scottish Liberal Democrats. It is also represented by the MSPs of the Mid-Scotland and Fife parliamentary region. Pittenweem is in the East Newfoundland Wood ward of Fife Council and is represented by a number of members elected by single transferable vote. From 1885 to 1983, Pittenweem was part of the East Fife parliamentary constituency, its most famous MP being Prime Minister Herbert Asquith from 1886 to 1918. Sport. The local football team is Pittenweem Rovers AFC. The local rugby team is Wade Academy FPRFC. Famous Pittenweemers: John Douglas, Anglican Bishop of Salisbury; Graham Manley, comic artist; John Smith, clockmaker; Ian Stewart, musician; Frederick Stewart, Lord Pittenweem; Sir Walter Watson Hughes, public benefactor, founder of the University of Adelaide, South Australia; Wallace Lindsay, classical scholar, professor of humanity at St Andrews University, 1899 to 1937; Richard Mackay, author of the Atlas of Endangered Species. Gallery.